Hi everyone, my name's Andrew, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create a custom class and use that class to create a custom array adapter, which we can then use to set an adapter in our fragments. And you can use an activity, but today we're going to talk about fragments because I'm going to use, as an example, um, my tour guide app from Udacity's Android Basics Nano degree that I created for the city of Hartford. So to start with a custom class, it's good practice when you're using Java to use encapsulation, which is one of the four pillars of excuse me, object-oriented programming. And so for that, we're going to use private variables to and then in combination with our private variables, we're going to use some getters. You can use setters too. So our getters just return the, the private variable so that we can use the variable the outside the class. And then setters would allow us to change the value of the variable outside the class, but we don't need that functionality since places, which is our custom class, places don't change their name or address very often. The only thing that might change is having an image resource for that. So you'll notice we also have m's in front of place name and place address, because that signifies that it is our private variable, so that when we pass in place name and place address into our constructor, we know which one is the variable that was passed in and which one is our private class variable. So you may have noticed here that I have two constructors. One of the constructors is for creating a place instance. So when you create a new instance of a class, by say we have new place Harriet Beecher Stowe Center. That place is now a new instance of the place class. And so this constructor here creates a place that does not have an image resource ID. And this constructor here is if we do happen to have an image, we can set our image resource ID value to the image resource ID that we pass in, rather than having it be the no image provided static final variable, which is always set to -1, because then it won't overlap with actual images we have, and instead it will reset it to the actual image ID so that we can get that from our resources file. Down here, like I said, we have our getter methods so that we can actually use those variables once we build our place. We can use those variables to do various things. In this case, we're going to be setting the variable to text views, so we need those. And then we also have this has image function here, or method, which will return a Boolean value, either true or false, based on if our image resource ID is equal to the no image provided static final value of -1. So if we do have an image, it won't be equal to -1, so this statement will return true. And if we have no image, then it will return false, which means we do not have an image. So now that we have our place class, we'll go over to our place adapter, which is our custom array adapter. And so if you do click into your array adapter and you go to, so you right click, go to, and go to declaration, we'll see that we have this public class array adapter, and that has all of these different, notice they also use private variables, but this will have all of these private variables, and then it'll also have a constructor and then all these functions. And what we do by extending our custom class by the ArrayAdapter of a place instance is we get the functionality of an ArrayAdapter only with the custom functions and constructors that we want to use for it. So just like with our place class, we have our private int color resource ID, which we're going to use to color the background of the text views. And we have our default kind of constructor here. It's not default because we are explicitly declaring what will be passed in, but our constructor is going to take this super method, which basically takes the constructor method from ArrayAdapter and creates an ArrayAdapter using our places array list that we're going to be passing in. And then it also sets our private int color resource ID to the color resource ID that we pass in using the constructor. So next what we need to do is every time the fragment or the activity gets brought up and we use the setAdapter method, the getView method in our custom adapter is going to be called. And so for that we want to pass in the int position, and that's just going to be the position of the current variable that we're looking, or the current position in the array list that we pass in. This place is array list, and that's going to be the current position that we're going to be using to get our information from each item in the array list. We have our view, we have our parent view, and what we're going to do is just to make it a little more clear here, we're going to set list item view equal to convert view, and that's just so that we know kind of what view we're looking at. If you notice up here, I have my list item view, and if we check out the preview for it, it's loading. So we have our preview for this list item, and just notice, we'll zoom in a little bit, it has a space for an image view here, a text view for the place name, a text view for the place address. But in our place adapter, we're just going to change convert view to list item view so that we know what we're looking at. If our list item view is empty, so if it's null, and empty and null are different. So if it's null, it doesn't exist yet, which means we can't put anything into it. And that means we have to use layout inflator to inflate a list item view using the list item layout. And that way we can begin to add our different places into the custom place adapter. And so after we have something where we can so if we do already have a list item view, if this Boolean returns false, that means we already have one, which means we can start adding immediately. But otherwise, like I said, we have to inflate it. So we start by getting the current place that we're looking at. So that'll be the item, as this says, the item in the position that we're interested in. And once we have that item, it'll go through all the items in the array list. But once we're looking at our current item, our current place, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a text view that looks in list item view. So we're in list item and we have this text view here that's called place name. So we're going to find that with our code using find view by ID. And then we're going to set our text, and notice here we use our getter for place name. So current place is an instance of place, and so place has the method get place name so that we can get the name of the place from, even though it's private in the other class. And so just here, this is Android Studio's warning us that it may produce a null pointer exception, and that's why we have to check to make sure we have our list item view so that we don't stick in a place that is in a place that it can't go, in an adapter that it can't go into. So we'll do the same with place address, and we'll set the text and everything. And so the image view is going to go differently, because remember how I said we have a constructor with a photo and a constructor without a photo. So we have to have a way to handle that, because if it has a photo, if it doesn't have a photo and it tries to stick something here, we're going to get an error. So what we do is we check if it has an image, and remember that's the method that returns true if it has an image, false if it doesn't. So if it does have an image, we'll set the resource ID to the current resource ID, and we will set the visibility, we'll make sure it's visible. So if we're just initializing it based on hard-coded values, we wouldn't have to set it to visible, but just in case we do get a picture and that changes, if we add the ability for a user to enter their own picture for it, and we want to make sure we set it to visible just in case it's set to gone, like it will be if this Boolean method returns false. So if we don't have one, we don't want there to be an image view, so it'll get rid of the image view, and the place name and address text views will take up the entire width of the view. After that, we have to set the background color for our containers, just for a little bit of usability. And so for that, we will find our text container view, which we see here is just this entire linear layout. So if we zoom in a little bit, this is our entire linear layout here, and we'll set the background of that to the color resource ID that we passed in. So that's easy enough. We return the list item view so that we're able to use that when we set our adapter. So we'll move over. This is a fragment, so it's slightly different than an activity, but this, using the custom adapter can be used in an activity or a fragment. And so it'll be a little bit different, and you can check the documentation for how it's different, but for the most part it's the same. We're gonna inflate our root view so that we actually have something to put our array adapter into. And we are going to create our new array list, so we're going to go ahead and add all of our places that we want to add into an array list called arts. In this case, this is all the cultural centers of Hartford. So once we have our array list, we can go ahead and initialize our new place adapter. So we have to make a new one, and we initialize it using the activity we're in. We'll use our array list arts here. We'll use the arts color that's stored in our colors.xml file, whatever color that may be. And then we'll take that and we're going to set it into this list view called list view, and which is just our root view. We're going to find view by ID and find the list ID in our place list file. So that's just this list view here. So it'll look something like that. And back to our fragment here, after we find that list view, we just set the custom adapter in there, and we should get something that looks like our app. So I probably should have started this up because I don't know if it'll finish running, but once it pops up, we'll see that all of our places that we added into our array list arts were created into an array adapter, which lets us scroll up and down, and it'll recycle all of the text views, or all the linear layouts. So it'll just keep using this little format, and once it runs out of room on the screen, it'll move them up and down so that we can always see our thing. And it looks like our emulator is not going to open in time, but this was creating, so we created in this video a custom place. We created a custom place adapter, and we looked into the array adapter code a little bit, but not too important for the baseline understanding of creating custom classes. And then we set the adapter in our fragment so that we can look at our beautiful creations. All right. Have a great day. This was Andrew Gasperi, and thanks for watching.